Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Gary Rose for a discussion on the 2020 census.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you today. And I'm extremely excited to learn about the federal census, which is currently taking place and which will be continuing for subsequent months as well. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today, and I know we have somewhat of a limited time frame here, so we're going to get right to it. Joining us today is Miss Marjorie Bernard, who is a partnership specialist with the US Census Bureau of the New York Regional Census Center. Also joining us is a very outstanding political science student at Sacred Heart University named Matteo Menta, who is also the president of the College Republicans. So we have a lot of questions, and we have to get right to this with Marjorie. But first of all, welcome both of you to today's event. It's really going to be very informative, I'm sure. Marjorie, I'd like to start with asking you, since you are a specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau, why we have a census and when did all of this start?
Well, thank you for first of all, thank you for having me today, and very happy to be here and talk to you about the census, which has already started in March. So the census is the leading provider of statistical data in the United States, and since 1790, we've been providing we've been counting all the people living in the United States every 10 years. So we have over 130 surveys, as well as the decennial census, which is done in years ending in 0, that we do. So we just want to make sure that people understand that how important it is for them to complete the census, and that while the census is going on, there are lots of surveys that we also do that we use to make up and count and get different services for us. And we want people to understand also that when the census is going on, that sometimes you have people coming out and doing different things that may not be legitimate, but we want people to understand that the census, we created different fraud lines for them to use. And right now, in fact, we're also making phone calls to follow up on all those wonderful citizens that completed the census already. All these people that completed it. Go ahead.
Let me ask a question here about how we complete the census. Now, I understand that in 2020, it's somewhat of an alternative way of collecting census data. Am I correct on that?
Sure. There are various ways to collect the census data that we're going to be using, but right now we're using new and advanced things, and thank goodness that we're doing that. But one of the things we want to make sure is that people understand that the census, it's safe, it's easy, and it's important. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. But for the first time this year, we're going to be doing the census online, by phone, and by paper. But before I get to that, I really want to talk a little bit about why is it important to us? And then I'll get back to that about the other things. But why is it important to us? The census is important, one, because it determines how many seats we have in the U.S. House of Representatives. It also determines how $675 billion in federal funds are spent. Those monies are spent on things like education, school lunch programs, things like Medicaid, healthcare, okay? And for the college students that you guys represent, it also means Pell Grants, okay? And security issues for them. So we want to make sure that everyone is included.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned college students, and we have one with us here today, and I'm sure he has a question about how college students complete the survey. Go ahead, Matteo, please.
Hi, Marjorie. Glad to be talking with you. So my question is, how does the census want college students to actually complete the survey? Because many go to college away from their home state. So let's say you go to college at Sacred Heart University, but you may be from New York. So where should we be filing our census forms?
So what we're trying to do is we want to count everyone once and only once and in the right place. And what that means is we're going to count 330 million people, 140 million housing units. And for those college students, what we're trying to do is we want them to understand that it's where they would have been on April 1st. That's where you get counted. And we want to make sure that they understand that why do you get counted in those places? So you get counted where you would have been on April 1st, which would have been at your college. So whether you live off campus or on campus, we want to make sure that you do that. So college students, the campus, the ones that live on campus, they're going to be counted by their college or university. And the one that lives off campus has to fill it out themselves. So here's the important thing that you need to remember. So if you're completing it off campus and you live with roommates, one person in the household completes the census for the entire person. And census really, really easy because it's only a few questions that you have to answer. You're going to answer your name, your address, are you male or female, your ethnicity, Hispanic, non-Hispanic. So those are the types of questions that you ask. And I tell people every day, when you answer those questions, they're basic questions. There's more information about you on Facebook, okay? And on some of those other social media platforms than is literally on the census. And it takes just a couple of minutes of your time to do it. And we don't ask questions like your social security number, account information. We're non-party affiliated, and we also never ask for money. So,
Marjorie, let me ask you this question. How secure is all of this information that you gather? How secure is it?
Oh, it's very secure. So it's very secure because unlike some of the other things that people do, and when you do a non-Census Bureau survey, it's protected under USC Code Title 13. And the Title 13 is something that protects the information that we gather that prohibits us from distributing what we call personal identifiable information, which means we cannot provide your name, address, phone number, GPS location to any other agency, and that includes federal agencies. That information comes in, it does not go out. We don't give that information to anyone. It cannot be used against you by law enforcement, by the other federal agencies, or court systems. What that means for some people, and we're counting everyone that lives in the United States. As I mentioned, about 330 million people, and that means whether you're a citizen, non-citizen, documented, undocumented, we need you to complete the census. And that information is protected, again, under law. Just one second, we're sworn in for life and penalty of 5 years in prison, $250,000 fine, or both if we violate that.
So President Trump wanted to have a citizenship question on this year's census, which is not on there, as I understand. And so what we're talking about here in terms of gathering data is just really population figures. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's really not focused on just citizens, is it?
No, it's not. And again, as I mentioned to Matteo before, why the students are counted where they're counted is because it's where you get services. Because that $675 billion goes to each state based on the number of people who complete the census. And we want to make sure that we have the right numbers. For example, one of the hardest to count populations are children under 5. We estimated that in 2010, over 1 million young children were not counted. And why? Because people didn't put them on the census. And statistical data that we collect is used to determine school districts, voting precincts. And so when you're determining school districts, the schools use that information as to when to build new schools. School lunch programs are paid for by that. When to hire teachers, classroom sizes. So when you leave those students out of it, those young children in, and remember, it's only once every 10 years that we actually do the census. So those figures are used for 10 years. And even
Sure.
Congress uses the census data to say when they're going in there and fighting and arguing about numbers and what to do, that population count is what's used. And we only use people who actually respond.
Yeah,
Okay?
sure. Matteo, go ahead.
Yeah, so another question I wanted to ask is, again, you need people to obviously respond to the census in order for it to be effective. So how can many young people who some would call politically disengaged, how can student leaders, faculty, and anyone really encourage people that they know to take the census?
So everyone is considered a trusted voice in their community. And your community may be your students, your family, your friends, the people you work with if you have a job. And so no matter where you are, telling people about the census, sharing the information, letting people understand that the census is safe. You know what I mean? There is actually a law that protects the information. Passing that information out to them, letting them know that there are only a few questions that's going to be asked. Putting stuff up on Facebook for us, social media, a simple tweet to your friends, because you have followers, you have people, again, that see you as a trusted voice in your community, that we want to make sure that they understand that it's done. I did my census, my family and I did it. We did it at the school, and we all need to be represented. We all need to be counted, because guess what? If you don't have enough transportation or buses going back and forth to where you live, no matter what state you live in, it counts in that state, that you want to make sure that the roads, because money from the census that goes to the state of Connecticut goes towards things, again, like roads.
We, we have a very diverse population in this country of ours. And could you tell us a little bit about how the census reaches such a range of diversity in terms of, people who have different language skills and different backgrounds, people who are here from other countries? How do they fill out this process here? This census form?
So, as you mentioned, I'm a partnership specialist, and my job is to go out there and make partners with people. And I mentioned before, one of the things to make them comfortable when they fill it out is for us to share that information, for me to do a webinar like I'm doing right now, and to let them know, again, it's easy. No one ever has to come to your door if you don't want them to, because you can do it online, by phone, paper. And we even went so far as to do it in 12 different languages, that if you complete the census online or by phone, that you can complete it. And we estimate that 99% of that population can speak one of the 12 languages, which includes things like Spanish, Haitian Creole, French, Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, Tagalog, just to name a few. And we did things in lots of different languages. Our public service announcements, depending on the demographics, we have things in those areas that are in different languages. And we make sure that people understand that. Again, if you do it online or by phone, you just simply go online, you pick the language you wanted, one of the 12 languages that you wanted in. And if you do it by phone, we have 12 different phone numbers in different languages, that you actually get a person who speaks the language that you selected. But we also have 59 other languages that we have videos and data in, that will help you complete the census. And again, just letting people know that the census, it's safe, it's easy, and how important it is to their day-to-day life. That if they use transportation, if they live in Section 8 housing, okay, it's important for your voting precincts, your school districts. If you have children, okay, and to their college students, those Pell Grants are determined by the number of people. When we count and estimate how many college students are going to be there, and even for the young children for the next 10 years, they're in high school now. It also used to estimate when they're doing money and when they're appropriating funds for those things in Washington and at the state and at the local level.
Sure.
So it's important at all different levels of government. The census, really, it's a benchmark for everything and every other survey in the United States.
It most certainly is. Matteo, go ahead. Do you have anything?
Yeah. So what I would like to know is, obviously, it seems like the Census Bureau really has thought of everything. But what I'd like to know is, are there any challenges that the census actually expects to face this year, especially with COVID-19, the hectic state of America right now?
Great
So,
question.
and it goes back to the online and by phone, because we're happy that, we started doing this for the first time, because now we're doing things like this webinars, and we've done a lot of that. And we've had to make changes we had to adjust everything that we do, because we all had to shelter at home and work from home. And so people had the opportunity to fill it out online or by phone. But we still are planning to go out there in the summer and in the fall and continue. For example, we originally had the census was scheduled to run from March 12th of 2020 to July 31st of 2020. Now March 12th to October 31st. And so it gives people more time, because COVID-19 affected a lot of things, including the mailings that we sent out at the end of an April, mailings and things like that. And it also affected our group quarters, which our group quarters is when we count everyone. And I said, when we want to count everyone living in the United States, we count the homeless population. We count the people living in shelters. We count no matter where you live, we want to count you. And so we are going to be going out for those people who did not respond in one of the three other ways, again, by phone, online, or paper. We intend to go out and door to door come mid-summer and fall, and do that right up until the end of October. So, and the reason we do this is because it actually affects what we found in 2010. A lot of people I mentioned didn't get counted. So one of the things we use is what's called Response Outreach Area Mapper, or ROAM. And for example, we have an area in Bridgeport, which less than 45% of the people responded to the 2010 census. And we call those we estimate that they're going to be low response areas again. So we're trying to mobilize people and get them out there to do that. And in answer to Mateo's question, going back to that, for example, yesterday, we had one of our partners that we partnered with had a food drive that they were giving away food yesterday. And what we did is another one of our partners went out and handed out flyers for us at the food drive. So we combine what's going on in those places and to make sure. So in this area, we're trying to find different ways. So if there's services, a lot of our churches, we get them involved in it. And so during church services, they're talking about the 2020 census. Mm-hmm. Wherever we are, we're trying to get people in their community to talk about it and let them know. Because
so let's talk about response rates. How is the response rate in Connecticut in general, and how does it vary from one part of the state to the other?
So, for example, United States last week finally hit 60%. Connecticut is doing fairly well. We're over 60% of the population that has already done the census and completed it. In Fairfield County, we're over 63% that's completed the census. But again, within Fairfield County itself, you have pockets of areas like in Stamford, Norwalk, Bridgeport, that the rates aren't that high. Okay. And even within a city itself, and I use Bridgeport because it's one of the lowest responding areas in Connecticut, in Connecticut, cities in Connecticut. And we have areas where 67% of the people have completed it. And then we have areas where only 19% of the people have completed it. So it varies. And so what we find in some of these areas are the mistrust, that people believe that it's only, again, for people who are citizens. The students on campus, the international students, feel that they don't have to complete it. And yes, if you live here and you're going to school here, you should complete it. If you're here on a visa, yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do we have a problem with, say, undocumented immigrants filling out the census? Are they afraid that possibly information will be revealed that could result in some type of deportation or something? So is there a problem with that?
I'm sure, yeah, there is, and just that language barrier. And so we're working with, again, as a partnership specialist, I go out and work with different organizations, and I tell people, introduce me. If you're a member of the Rotary Club, if you're a member of a church, if you are a member of an international organization, invite us. And we have like different international legal services that are working with us to get that information around. And for example, we have the International Refugee Services that's working with us and trying to get their population to do it. And again, it goes back to the fact that the information is protected under law. ICE cannot use that information that we give because we use statistical data alone. Again, information comes in, does not go out. And I use an example all the time to people that when you register your child to school, documented or undocumented, you go and you register your child for school. We even ask for less information that you would give the school. And our information is protected. In Connecticut, we can document or undocumented, you can apply for a driver's license. And again, that information, we ask for less information. And our information, USC Code Title 13, protects that. We do not share it with any other federal agency. They can provide us with information, but we cannot provide people with personally identifiable information, which is your name, address, phone number, GPS location. Matteo, you have a question for me?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're talking about how in a lot of these cities across Connecticut, like Stamford, Bridgeport, New Haven, I'm sure, what is the effect that's going to happen on these communities if their voices aren't properly recorded by the census?
So, as I mentioned before, we get $675 billion, part of $675 billion for the federal government. Connecticut itself is what we call a donor state because it's a low performing state. So we give the federal government money, more monies than we get in from them. So in 2010, it's just about over 70% of the people in Connecticut responded. So almost 30%, somewhere around there, didn't respond. And so we get less money, but we still have to use that money for 100% of the population. So, for example, and I use Bridgeport because it's a poor performing city that was, and we're hoping to do better this year, that when we get that money in, and a lot of people don't respond because Bridgeport, only a little over 60% of the people, the population in 2010 responded. So we're only getting that much money, but it still has to be used for 100%. And when you don't count those young children, again, it goes back to classroom sizes, the number of teachers that are hired. So it affects them very, very much based on the numbers, because the numbers is what determines, again, seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. And for people who know, we used to have 6 seats. Now we have 5. The census data didn't say it warranted 6 seats. And again, we go back to that. The numbers matter on a federal level, state level, city level.
Now, we have the census every 10 years. We're in the process of that right now, but I know in between the years in which we conduct these census, we have community surveys, and we have a number of other surveys going on. And if you Google Census Bureau, a lot of other surveys show up. Can you tell us something about the community survey?
So as I mentioned in the beginning, 130 surveys that we do, and different ones for different things. The American Community Survey is also used. And 5 years, what we do is we put 5 years of the American Community Survey combined with the census and the response area mapper, Rome, that I mentioned before. The data that we put in there is when we combine those two together. 5 years worth of that kind of does give us another snapshot of what it looks like. So what people need to understand is those surveys are just as important as the census, because while the census is the benchmark, it gives us individual information. So, for example, we have the economic census, and the economic census is done in years ending in 2 and 7, which is every 5 years, and that is a census of the economy. It's telling, for example, in Connecticut, what businesses are going and leaving Connecticut, and a lot of people use that to determine where do I want to put in a new business. And when you combine that with the census, you can look and see the demographics of that area. And
So
see,
are the same, oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
are the same protections that are offered to people who take the census awarded to people who take the community survey as well?
Title 13 does affect both of them. And you have to understand, each part of the government has different that does it. So the Department of Commerce, that's one of the important one for the census. But we have several, that apply to us and applies to the department, because the Census Bureau is a part of the Department of Commerce. So there are more than one law, but the most important one for us, for the Census Bureau, is Title 13. So every Census Bureau employee is sworn in for life. Not when the census ends, not when we leave the Bureau, but for the rest of our lives to protect that and guard that information. And even when we dispose of that information, we make sure that it's disposed of properly and make sure that no one can get that information for at least 72 years, that the information we collect. You can't get the name, you can't get the address, phone numbers, data. And again, we tell people all the time, you put more information than that on your Facebook page. So
How do people get a job with the Census Bureau? I understand they're hiring, isn't that correct?
yeah, they're hiring right now. Right now, the majority of the people that we're hiring are for census takers, because as I mentioned before, we're looking to go back out sometime in August to the end of October for those people who did not respond. And that the jobs in Connecticut pays from $19 to $25 an hour. It depends on the county where you live. For example, Fairfield County, for a census taker, it's $25 an hour. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
with other counties may be different. So, and it's throughout the United States that we're looking for right now. And in addition to that, as a partnership specialist, my job in helping them to get to do that is to find training spaces for them. So for them to be trained. So we partner with different people, for example, the different universities, to see if they have a training space that we can use to train those workers that we hire. And again, the important thing is trying to make sure that the people that we hire are meet the qualifications, and that when we go out there, that we're keeping social distance, that we're doing what the federal government says, the state government, and to what it is to our local governments. So just trying to make sure that they're safe, and that anyone can apply for the jobs at 2020census.gov/jobs.
Yeah,
Okay.
I suspect it would be quite a challenge these days. You said that as follow-up, activity, sometimes a census worker has to visit a family to try to get more information, perhaps. And in light of the coronavirus and wearing masks these days, I mean, this must make it very difficult sometimes to obtain data from people. Wouldn't you agree?
So we're doing very well with the online. and by the phone. And that goes back to what we want people to do, because when you do it, not only when you do it online and by phone, and I mentioned the response rates go in automatically, and you can check with the response rate map that was up earlier that what is going on right then and there. So if you don't want people, and to maintain that safety and your safety, if you get to respond right away in one of the two ways, by mail and online or by phone, it prevents someone from knocking at your door, because we are going to knock at your door, and just not answering the door is not going to help. It's just going to mean we're going to come more than once.
Right.
It's just going to mean we're going to have to come out there more than once. And any census worker that comes out, they're going to have identification. You can call, you can verify that it's us. And again, it's only a few simple questions. And you can even check on the response map. You yourself, it's open to the public. You can go online, check to see what the response rate is in your area. And it's simple. Become a trusted partner yourself. Make sure you tell your friends, your family, complete the 2020 census. And and it's all part of sharing the information. If each person gets a friend, a family member, if each one of us tells someone, ask someone, and go out there and get them to do it, from speaking to your church, inviting us when we open back up, can someone from the census come and speak to the churches? Because prior to COVID-19, I was in every church in area, different cities and towns, senior centers, talking to people face to face about completing it and answering their questions. So if people have questions about it, Matteo, for you and your friends can create a webinar, invite me to speak to them, answer their questions if they have questions. So that's one of the things you can do. Have your own. One of our the people that I worked with had a Facebook party, a 2020 census Facebook party, where there was music. Every half an hour, I got on and talked to them about the census. They sent in questions and we answered them while they were listening to great music from any genre that they feel comfortable with. So people are thinking of innovative ways. I know one of the cities in New Haven had what they called a party on wheels. And they had people driving around. Yeah, it's funny, but those are things that we want people to come up with great ideas of how to help their community, because especially after COVID-19, we are going to need the monies that the state of Connecticut gets more than ever, because again, it's used for things like housing, healthcare, Medicaid, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. And so they're going to need those social services that 600, Connecticut's portion of that $675 billion pays for.
Yes.
So.
Well, Marjorie, I think on that note, we can bring closure to this highly informative discussion that we just had concerning the census and the details associated with what is actually a very challenging process every 10 years. And thank you for your service as well to the country, really, for working on on this project and your role in the Census Bureau, and it's just really a very important thing that you're doing, and it affects our politics, our economics, our healthcare, transportation, education. It affects people like me. It affects people like Matteo Menta here, one of our great college students, and so much of it comes out of the census data that is gathered that has so many impacts in various ways. So I want to thank you for today's session here on what essentially is a webinar on the Census Bureau, and I hope that all the people who've been watching and listening learned something from the incredible amount of information you just shared with us. So thank you very much for your time and consideration today. And Matteo, thank you for joining us as well. So we will conclude now.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, it's been a real pleasure.
No, it's great. Thank you guys so much.